And now we have Mårten from Stockholm University.
Thank you very much for inviting me to present here at this beautiful conference. And the work I will present is joint with Johannes Hagen, Lisa Laun, and Charlotte Lucke. And it's about the rising income gradient in life expectancy in Sweden over a 60-year period. And it's based on a published paper in PNAS, and my intention was to first sort of depart from that and then present a little bit more, but I decided to focus on the core message here. But we also work on implications. That's how we started for redistribution in the pension system. So I do this first, and then I have one slide on the international comparisons. So a little bit background. I think the relationship between income and health is probably one of the most studied relationships in social sciences. And there are lots of previous work on it. And maybe I think the most iconic graph here on the relationship is the so-called Preston curve. So these dots are different countries. And you see that there's a concave relationship and a steep part in the beginning and a more flatter part. So it illustrates where infectious diseases is overtaken by chronic diseases as the main causes of death. But interestingly, this concave relationship applies to all contexts, like different geographical units within countries and with different occupations and so on, all different groups where we could measure mortality. Two recent influential that has already come up in Paul's presentation is one of Rachetti with co-authors and also follow-up study by Norwegian researchers Kinge et al., where they have documented also an increasing income gradient, but for a quite short period from 2001 to 2014, I think. And a fundamental question here is if there's a causal or if income per se affects longevity, or if it's just a correlation. So to illustrate this, so it's an obsession in economics now to distinguish with correlation and causality. So think of longevity as the van here, and what moves the van? Is it the red guy in the red shirt, who's or the so that represents a correlation, or is it the guy in the yellow shirt, which represented a third factor or the causal relationship between longevity and income and longevity. So we will come. So that's a very important question that we will come back to and try to say something about. So if we look at economic theory, then we think of people investing in health and people with more resources to invest. And that gives rise to the so-called absolute income hypothesis. So income in itself has an effect on longevity. So that's income representing the yellow shirt guy. However, if we if we leave in, for example, you probably know about Michael Marmot's numerous studies on the people in different hierarchies, and his idea is that the social status is really the driving force and not income itself. So that would place income as the red shirt guy. And also one could think of other third factor candidates like preferences for smoking and healthy lifestyles and so on that could be correlated with income, but is not driving the causal relation. So why is it important? I think it's a very strong policy motivation, because if we believe that there is a causal relation, then income redistribution policies could increase the life expectancy in the society. So if you redistribute income from rich people with on a flat segment to the poor people on the steep segment, you increase longevity in the society. So it's a very important thing, I think, to study. Okay, so we have, in this paper, we have 3 research questions. So how has the income gradient evolved over the 60-year period that we could study? And then what explains the growth in the income gradient that we observe? And that comes back to the causal degree of causal relationship. And finally, we will also relate it to different causes of death. I think there's like 3 main contributions of the study. So we compared to previous studies, we cover a much longer period, and we could also relate it to look at changes in how it relates to long-term changes in income inequality, how the Preston curve has changed, and also how it relates to avoidable causes of death, which relates to the causality of the relationship. And finally, we will see that we would find very little support for the absolute income hypothesis. So it challenged the view of the absolute income hypothesis. Okay, the data we use is that we have collected we have put lots of effort in collecting income data. So we are able to look at all Swedish, all permanently residing in Sweden above age 40 for the period 1962 to 2021. So we look at tax register primarily, and also the census registers in some cases. We're able to calculate for all a measure of equivalized household income. I mean, we use the so-called OECD scale, a square root of number of household members. That's to correct for differences in needs. So we have a huge sample size. So it's the sample, we look at 9.4 million individuals. We have more than 213 person years that we look at. And then we observe almost 4 million deaths in the sample over this period. And the mortality data we use is we have a very long cause of death register dating back to the late 1950s in Sweden. So we use that, and we could distinguish with very detailed causes of death. But for this study, we use a very crude measure. And we also classify mortality in the main causes of, so the crude classification we use here is circulatory diseases, cancer, external causes, and combination of all other causes of death. And we also look at, we use the OECD Eurostat classification of treatable, preventable, and both treatable and preventable diseases and non-avoidable causes of death. Okay, so the statistical method, very briefly. So we use to avoid, so we divide the sample in cells by year, age, and gender. And then we classify, classify it in income percentiles. And we measure the income 2 years before we measure the mortality to avoid reverse causality. Okay, and then we observe, observe sort of non-parametrically the mortality within these cells up to age 76. Then the data becomes a little bit noisy, so we use a Gumpert model to predict mortality within each percentile. So to illustrate this very briefly, so it's you know, it's a log linear, it's a very stable log linear relation between mortality and within each, by age, within any group. And here we look at 2 percentiles, the 95th and the 5th, and you see that it's a converging measure, but it predicts very well. And you see also that it's converging by age income gradient. From that we could construct survival curves. And above age 90 we used the population data for joint mortality. Okay, so results. Here's the main result. And you can see that here is life expectancy. Every dot represents the life expectancy of a particular percentile. And you can see that it's some good news and some bad news. So it's to the left, it's men, and to the right, it's women. And you see in the lower end, you can see that for from the entire income distribution, it live longer. Longevity has increased. However, in the lower end, it's a very small change. It's like 3 years over this 6-year period. In the upper end of the distribution, it's more than 10 years. So it's a hugely increasing income gradient in life expectancy. Okay. It's the same pattern for women, but the income gradient is much smaller there, and as you can see. So here is a summary measure. So here we have just fitted a linear regression to get a summary measure of the income gradient, and so it's represented the number of years between the smoothed, since it's a nonlinear relation, it's a little bit crude, but it's smoothed out difference between the first and the 100th percentile. So you can see that it goes from 3.5 to above 10 for men, and slightly less, both less change and slightly less level among women. So here is a measure of health inequality. So it's the ratio in life expectancy between the 90th and the 10th percentile. So that's the blue curve here. And the dashed line is the evolution of the Gini coefficient in household income. So you can see that for health inequalities, it's a continuous increase throughout the entire period. For income inequality, you can see that it's a phase of decreasing income inequality from 1960s to 1990s, and then an increase in income inequality. But if you believe in the absolute income hypothesis, strong correlation or strong causal relation between income and health, this is not what you would expect. Then you would expect a similar development in income and health inequality, right? So this contradicts the absolute income hypothesis. This is, in my view, the most interesting graph. This is the within-country precedent curve, and how it evolves over time. So it depicts real income on the x-axis and life expectancy by ventiles. And the interesting thing is, first of all, it's concave as we expect, but if the cross-sectional relation between income and health would have been maintained, then you would see the dots scattered throughout the entire relationship, right? But this is not what you see. You see a shift in the upper end of the income distribution. So those of you who have studied economics, you remember that when you study demand and supply, you have exogenous changes. Then you shift the curve. But if you have changes in relation along the relation, then you move along the curve. Here you see an exogenous change, a change attributed to the exogenous factor in the upper end of the income distribution. Again, that contradicts the absolute income hypothesis. If you believe that, if you believe in the absolute income hypothesis, you would see the same relation across the income distribution and across time, right? Okay, causes of death. Here are the main causes of death. So you see that the main change, so the upper two graphs are for men. You can see that the main driver is changes in circulatory diseases. But also, so it's a bigger change in the lower end, but from a much higher level. But also, I think interesting to see like cancer mortality before age 75, for example. Nothing has happened in the lower quartile of the income distribution. It's sort of stable. But in the upper end, it has, for men, it has almost halved over the studied period. For women, it's the same development, but qualitatively the same development, but on a lower scale. So, and I also think that this reveals that the convergence between the gender and life expectancy is mostly attributed to circulatory diseases. So here is the how many years from premature mortality before age 75 that could be attributed to the different causes of death. And you can see that there's a largest change, and most interesting, I think, this is the cancer mortality among men is substantial for the upper end of the income distribution, but very small for the lower end of the income distribution. Here is very briefly on the different causes of death, and you can see that my time is running out, so I'll be very brief on this. But you can see that purely preventable causes of death has saved a lot of life in the upper end of the income distribution, men in the fourth quartile, for example, but nothing in the lower end of the income distribution. Again, suggesting that a third factor explanation of overall change, because it suggests that the change is lifestyle factors are the main driver of the change in the income gradient. Very briefly on here we have plotted the curve for the Chetty study along our and the Norwegian study, and you can see that although it's a little bit steeper in the US, it's not, the difference is surprisingly small compared to the Nordic countries. However, the lowest, we have to bear in mind that they use tax data, and about 20% of the population do not pay taxes in the US, so they are out of the relation. So if you include that, it will probably bias the US results towards a flatter relationship. Okay, very briefly, I'm out of time. I'm on -1 minute. But the two main conclusions is that there is a huge increase in health inequality over the 60-year period that we have studied, and the widening income gradient in longevity appears to reflect changes in disease prevention and health behavior, such as much more than changes in the income itself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mårten.